I'm Mari Cartel, LifeScript.com, and this is your Hollywood Health Report. Paris Jackson survived her suicide attempt, so now what? Could it have been prevented? We sat down with respected Brentwood, California psychologist Dr. Charlotte Reznick, author of the book The Power of Your Child's Imagination, for help on recognizing the signs of suicide and what steps to take once your child's at risk. What can stress do to a child to put them on the edge where they are thinking about harming themselves?
Stress could do a lot because stress affects our mind, our body, and our behavior. And we don't understand, we don't often know how stressed our kids are. I think I was mentioning to you there's a study, American Psychological Association does an annual stress survey, and they started asking teens and tweens in the last few years, were you more stressed this year than last year? Are you sleeping more? Are you eating more or less? And it turns out that there's a large percentage of kids that are more stressed. And yet, their parents don't have a clue. So it might be 40% of the kids feeling more stressed or 70%, whereas the parents only might know 13% might think their kids are stressed. So it's very important to realize this because we want parents to be very aware of what's happening with their kids. And to answer your question more directly about what stress does, what happens is we get overwhelmed. When kids are stressed, they just can't react. They can't respond the way they would normally do. And I find that in my practice, so many kids are more stressed than ever before. I can't tell you for sure, but I'm seeing it. And when we're talking about teenagers, it's their friends, it's their peers, it's social media. I can't tell you how many kids are complaining that even with the Instagram, when their friends aren't liking their photos or they're unliking their photos, it really upsets them.
Something as simple as just whether they've just put a mark on there saying like?
Yes, yes. Or the comments they'll write. I had a 13-year-old here recently just in tears because a girl she thought was her best friend or one of her good friends was not liking her photos. Or another girl was unliked her photo. And they're watching it all the time. Everything's so instant. So she was really depressed.
We're talking about somebody like Paris Jackson,
right,
who has just attempted suicide. When it's a situation like that where she's got a big event coming up, she's testifying, that's a big deal in their lives. But in the situation where she's ODing on ibuprofen and trying to cut her arms, is this, in your experience, do you look at this and see it as a cry for help, or is this a genuine attempt to end their lives?
Well, because we don't know her personally, it's really hard to tell. But every time a child attempts to hurt themselves, I take it very seriously. Because she's not just thinking of doing something, she's actually done something. So to me, that is definitely saying, I'm so hopeless, I am in such despair. I see it as a suicide attempt. A cry for help, what's the difference? A cry for help is asking, I'm having trouble, but she could hurt herself.
What should we be looking for first as parents?
Right.
That are signs that maybe our child is going down that path.
Right. You want to look for depression, if they're very sad a lot, if they're not taking care of their appearance, any changes in behavior, if they're sleeping more or sleeping less, if you suspect they're using drugs. I always suggest people test their kids, just randomly, just anyway. You're looking for changes in their behavior. That's unusual. Now, sometimes you might have a child that feels really depressed and sad, but all of a sudden they feel fine. They look fine. That might be a bad sign because they might have decided, I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
And they're at peace with it. It's like they have a solution.
Before we actually seek out medical help, what should we be doing?
Talking to her, finding out who her friends are, speaking to her, even her friends, have the gang over and see what their interaction is and see what you could pick up. And be really honest with her. It's kind of like, I love you. That's the most important thing. I'm concerned about you. I know you want to be all grown up, and I want you to be that too, but your safety is most important to me.
If you saw Paris Jackson's posts with these song lyrics. Would you have said, maybe we should talk? What would you have said to?
Well, you know, those lyrics are connected to so many millions of people, even Paul McCartney's Yesterday lyrics. So the sentiments are so, people really understand them. And I think often kids are just trying to vent and express themselves. So based on just the lyrics, no. I would want to talk to her anyway. You know, if I was her mom or dad, I would definitely want to see what's happening. But those lyrics may be a little dark, but kids are dark also. They go to dark places. I mean, they're into vampires and zombies and just new dark places.
What is it that's going on that if one kid wants to harm himself, another one wants to follow
It's
suit?
like, oh, this is a new idea. They didn't think of it before. I mean, cutting really wasn't around. And all of a sudden it became around. Everyone, it was like, oh, I'm upset. I could do this. Let me just see what it feels like. Let me try it.
Suicide's so far from that,
well, I'm
though,
thinking
you know.
about cutting. You're
Yeah.
right. But kids do not, and adults too who commit suicide, don't realize that it's not the answer. It's not the answer. They just feel it's a quick fix, and they'll feel bad. They feel so bad inside and so hopeless. They think there's no other way out.
Interesting, really interesting. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out with me. This was fascinating.
So thank you for asking me.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
This has been your Hollywood Health Report from LifeScript.com. I'm Mari Cartel.